Here's the survey. The response rate was great. Thank you cities, thank you counties, thank you towns, thank you villages and school districts. Please do your homework. I'm going to say it here. The school districts were not as good to work with on this survey. You wouldn't share your email list so that we could do it efficiently, and the response rate suffered as a result. I hope the next time we work together, we didn't share the email list with anybody else. We just used it to give you an individual code so you never got bothered a second time once you had answered the survey. But the response rate overall was pretty excellent. What are y'all doing in your responses to fiscal stress? You're increasing user fees. Good, it's a source of revenue. Good, because if the citizen sees that if you want a service, you have to pay for it. Bad, because user fees are not progressive. They can fall more heavily, depends on the user fee. They might fall more heavily on the user, and maybe the user should pay. But sometimes the user's a little kid or a little old lady and can't pay in the same kind of way. And so you really need to think about the equity issues of user fees. But user fees are on the rise across the country, and particularly when you have tax caps, you're going to raise more user fees. And the next thing you're doing is exploring additional shared service arrangements. So you're already there, the governor wants you to do this, and you're doing it. Personal cuts and reductions, you all know this, these are hard. Reducing services, you're much less enthusiastic to do because you're trying to maintain quality of life. Consolidation, not so much. Consolidation of departments, maybe. Delivering services with citizen volunteers, this co-production idea, a little bit. Eliminating services, very little. Selling assets, even less. Though, are any of you thinking of selling assets now? Yes.
Yeah.
What?
Real estate.
Real estate. Yeah, so, yes.
We're thinking of eliminating the transportation department and selling those.
And if you eliminate your transportation department, then where do you get transportation from? It's just...
It will have
So the ultimate form of privatization is to cease the service altogether, and it's your private responsibility to figure out how you get there. You know, New Zealand abolished school buses and the rural postal service. So if your family lives in a rural area, you don't get the mail, and you got to drive your kids to school, God knows wherever that school is. I don't think I want to go there, but you know, I've looked over the years at New Zealand, and they're like 10 years ahead of where we end up. Cuomo's original proposal had 3 elements. Tax cap for governments and school districts, property tax freeze with the idea was the tax circuit breaker for homeowners. It's not exactly what we got here. And mandate relief. We need all 3 reforms if we're going to have comprehensive relief. But as I don't need to tell you, the tax cap doesn't provide any real relief without the other reforms. It just starves the cities and starves the citizens of services. And that's what we're trying to keep it from starving us so much. Then the property tax freeze comes through, but it's not the tax circuit breaker that we had originally imagined. It's now proposed with strings attached, requiring new sharing arrangements that assume you're going to get 3% savings and ignore the prior history of sharing. So when I was at the Towns Conference, there were some town officials who were talking about exiting shared agreements this year so they can re-enter them next year and claim it as savings. And then, of course, mandate relief is still needed, and we don't even get to talk about it anymore. Tax caps contribution to fiscal stress. You're feeling it more heavily in places that are more dependent on it. I had a student who did this interesting little project where he took the comptroller's data for the aggregate of all local government units in the state and said, if we had put the tax cap in back in 2000, where would we be today in current dollars? So not constant dollars, not taking account of inflation. Expenditures today would be 23% less. So let's do a little thought experiment. Let's think today and 10 years forward. If everything you do 10 years from now is 23% less in current dollars, not even, to put inflation, it's even worse. I think the metaphor of starving the cities is actually an appropriate metaphor. How could you possibly maintain the level of services that we're used to that we're accustomed to in this state with that kind of a reduction in your budget. There are not enough savings there. My sister used to say you can't get blood from a turnip. I mean, there's just not that much savings left there. Now, this is a very crude analysis. It's just looking overall, but it's sort of, to me, it kind of gives me a scare. The second thing we're talking about is the circuit breaker and linking it to shared services. So now I'm going to move to the survey. And of the 29 services that we measured, we found that the sharing rate was 27%. And of course, it's no surprise to you, the highest rates of sharing are in public works, public safety, parks and rec. Cost savings were only one of the goals, and they were only found half the time. And like I said at the beginning, the other goals are improved service quality and improved regional coordination, because we do need to coordinate because we do have a fragmented local government system. Now, this is really similar to studies found around the world. I have a colleague in Europe, which is why I do a lot of work comparing with Europe, and cost savings in Europe have been found, but all those studies, to a study, every study has only been on garbage collection. So yes, there are studies that find significant cost savings with shared services. They're all from Europe, and they're all on garbage collection. So what I thought, and this you'll find in the report, this is the New York State data, and what I've done is just showed you, I'm running through some of the 29 services just so you can see. You can see the percent municipalities engaged, the average length of an agreement in years, the most common agreement, which is a memorandum of understanding, and whether or not you said that cost savings were achieved. And so you'll see that it's just about half the time that you say cost savings were achieved. So this is I'm reporting back to you your data. Schools, you're not in this because this is cities, towns, villages, and counties. Schools, you'll have to wait. I've got a few things on you at the end. So what you can see is we've been doing this for a long time. We do a lot of it. It's not terribly formalized. An MOU is not the most formal measure that we had on the survey, and cost savings are not always achieved. Municipal courts looks like an area where we're really low, and maybe there's something there. How much savings would be in bringing them together? I'm not so sure. Let's look at public works and transportation. This is one where we have a lot of experience, particularly in roads and highways. And roads and highways and garbage are the areas where you see cost savings reported over, almost 68% of the time. These are familiar to us. They've been going on a long time. Let's move to recreation and social services. Here in libraries, because we have our library systems, we have a lot of sharing. That's our biggest one. Youth recreation, a lot of times the counties help to coordinate that with all the municipalities in the county. Again, some chance for cost savings with these, and again, they've been around for a while. Where I think we have potential is in administrative and support services. Tax assessment, only 39% are sharing. Cost savings, 71% of the time. Maybe there's more potential for more tax assessment savings. Energy purchase. Only 25% say they're doing energy purchase collectively. There could be some big money there. Purchase of supplies. Again, that might be an area, and I know you have a session this afternoon that gets to that. Health insurance. Very few sharing, but they're reporting good cost savings there. Whether it changes with the shifts in the healthcare market, I'm not sure. Information technology. Very, very little sharing, 8%, but those that do are reporting relatively high levels of sharing. So I'm wondering if I'm thinking that this is the area, if you're looking for things where you might actually get savings, what I would think from the survey, you can say, oh no, you're wrong, we know this stuff, we're looking at it closer, it's not here, but this is what I'm seeing looking at it from 10,000 feet up. And again, more professional services on staff, on building maintenance, on liability insurance, and then payroll and bookkeeping. So maybe there's some more potential there, and if y'all wanted to work together, that might be an area where some increased attentions could go. We also asked about